Hi everybody, it's Lindsay with High Altitude Astrology, and I'm here today with another chart reading. Today I'm going to be looking at the chart of Anthony Bourdain, and if you'd like to follow along, his birth information is June 25th, 1956 in New York, New York. I don't have a birth time, so I'm working off of what's called a solar chart. And if you don't know what a solar chart is, a solar chart is a chart you can generate when you don't have a birth time, and you choose a time that puts the sun on the ascendant. So in this case, it's somewhere around 6 a.m. and that gives you information. It just doesn't allow you to know exactly where the planets are in relationship to the houses, but it will still give you all of the other planets and their relationship to one another. It also does not allow you to know the true degree of the moon sign, or which sign the moon is in for that matter. The other thing is, if you've never been able to generate a chart online, there's a website called Astrodotcom, and they offer a free service to generate many astrological charts. So check that out if you're interested in finding a place to actually create charts. All right, so let's look at Anthony Bourdain's chart. Well, first, let me explain who he is in case you don't know. He was a celebrity chef, and he too, similar to Kate Spades, passed away from suicide within the last few days. And of course it was a shock to the world because, again, it was unexpected. His mother was basically quoted as saying, you know, he was the last person that she thought would actually ever do something like this. He was in France filming because he filmed a television show called Parts Unknown, where he traveled around the world and he would expose everybody to the food culture everywhere. And they say that in something that I read, that people who were with him or near him at the time, that he had been exhausted and that he was in a dark mood. Also, they're waiting for toxicology reports to come back, but there wasn't any indication that he had been drinking alcohol per se. And he has an interesting story because he was a recovering heroin and cocaine addict and then found sobriety from that in the 1980s, but he still drank. And as we know, or as you may know, you know, depression can be sparked by alcohol use because it, you know, depletes the body of serotonin, and it is one indication of something that can stimulate suicidal thoughts. Okay, and maybe this is a good place to just jump into the natal chart, because there's definitely an indication that he had struggles with substance abuse in his chart. He has his Mars in Pisces, and Mars in Pisces, Mars is how we assert ourselves, how we, you know, our courageous energy, our action energy, our strength. And Pisces is this watery, emotional, feeling, sensitive energy. So it's actually a challenging place to have your Mars, because it encourages us to want to seek the experience of transcending the material world. That's very Piscean. You know, it wants to connect with spiritual energy. And so it's easy for us with Mars and Pisces to find that quick route to transcendence through drugs and alcohol. The other thing I wanted to say about having Mars and Pisces too is that the energy level, the strength of Mars and Pisces, it ebbs and flows. You have a lot of energy, and then you have, you know, no energy. And so, you know, he was talking about, you know, being exhausted. I read something that said, you know, he would really work really hard, and then he'd have to kind of seclude himself in his hotel to just recuperate, you know, because that's what Mars in Pisces needs. And it's a very sensitive psychic energy, and it can feel a lot on the emotional level from the world around it. And that's another reason why it needs this isolation and seclusion, because it kind of has to like cleanse from picking up all of that psychic energy from the world around. So, you know, that's one indication of not only his addictions, but, you know, just his energy level and the need for him to in some ways kind of take care of that part of himself. His Mars is squared Mercury at 12 degrees of Gemini. This probably gave him, you know, that kind of quick-witted, you know, personality, quick repartee. You know, he was a writer. He wrote many books. Also could have given him a bit of an edge to his communication style, because when you have Mars and Mercury combining, that's the warrior and the communicator together. So I feel like there was a part of him, I mean, you can see it and read it in his books, that he had a little bit of an edginess to the way he communicated. So let's go back to his sun. He has a 3-degree Cancer sun, and it's conjunct his Venus in Gemini at 28 degrees. So it's an out-of-sign conjunction. But right away we can see with a Cancer sun that what he was doing with food is definitely suited to his solar nature, because Cancer rules the stomach. Cancer is the energy of nurturing, and we nurture through food. And then, of course, next to Venus, Venus is creative expression. So it makes sense to me that his career was focused around, you know, using food creatively, or finding a way to create through the use of food, and he certainly did that. And his sun conjunct Venus trines that Mars in Pisces. His Mars in Pisces is at 11 degrees. So this just brings a lot of, you know, drive to that solar expression, to that creative expression, which probably helped just make his being a chef and wanting to create more of a possibility with that Mars strength blending with it. His sun conjunct Venus also sextiles conjunction between Jupiter at 27 degrees of Leo, conjunct Pluto at 26 degrees of Leo. This probably also gave him a lot of energy, because Jupiter wants to expand and grow, you know, and especially Jupiter in Leo. It wants to expand and grow through ways that allow it to shine and radiate out into the world, allow it to gain recognition. And with Pluto there, Pluto is this intensity. Pluto is this desire to control, you know, and so when you've got Jupiter and Pluto together, you really can expand your world through your drive, through your ability to really focus and concentrate your attention. And it also suggests too that with Jupiter, because that's your philosophies and your perspective, and Pluto, you know, which is not only power, but it's this energy of transformation, it could just suggest that there was a lot of energy there combining with that Sun-Venus conjunction in his chart to really make a statement on the world through what he was doing, you know, and to help transform other people's perspectives through what he was doing. I also know that he was into martial arts. This Jupiter conjunct Pluto in Leo could relate to that interest of his. And then the other thing is that Venus-Sun conjunction in Gemini and Cancer respectively trines his Neptune in Libra. So to have Venus and Sun trine Neptune, again, this is somebody who is creative and has an ability to tap into those more subtle Neptunian creative, imaginative vibrations and allow it to blend with the expression of the sun, how he shines out into the world, and the Venus, which is also about creativity and you know, this could be somebody who appreciates the finer things too, because Venus is our tastes, and Neptune refines. You know, Neptune refines that taste, so that I'm sure helped him in his ability to, you know, really enjoy the intricacies and the subtleties of the food he was creating and the food he was, you know, tasting around the world. This could also be another indication, even though it's a trine, but with Venus and Neptune, you know, Venus likes pleasure. Venus wants to indulge. And so, and then with Neptune, you know, it wants to do it in that way that, again, brings transcendence. So this could be another indication of just, at times, overdoing that Neptunian indulgence in his life. Okay, so I want to talk about a few things that are going on in his chart. And this might be a good time to address, I was asked, you know, what are there any similarities between Kate Spades' chart and Anthony Bourdain's chart that might sort of indicate, you know, they would be driven or open to taking their lives? And that's a very challenging topic, because, you know, we all have patterns in our chart, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to end up a certain way. It depends on the level of consciousness and awareness that we, you know, choose to bring to our patterns. And what I can say, though, about the two charts is that there's definitely a lot of Neptune energy, because Kate Spade had Venus conjunct Neptune squared her Mars, and Anthony Bourdain had Sun conjunct Venus, trined the Neptune with the Mars in Pisces. So there's just a lot of and that Sun conjunct Venus trined his Mars in Pisces, I should say. So a lot of Neptunian Venus, you know, indulging in transcendental pleasures that kind of get us out of our mind, but with Mars involved, in some cases, like in Kate Spades, it was in a more stressful aspect. It can just mean there's a need for adjustment around that. And with, you know, it just, you know, with his personal Mars in Pisces, it could have indicated just a harder time kind of controlling that part of him that liked to transcend through the, you know, through the pleasures. Another thing to be said about both of these people, and anybody with a lot of Neptune or Pisces in the chart, is there's a reason for seeking that transcendence, because we absorb so much, we're so sensitive, we feel so much. When we choose these sort of fast-tracked ways, it's like we just want relief, because we're so sensitive. We feel so much, we absorb so much, and we want some way of cleansing all of that. The best way, if we are a sensitive person and we have a lot of water in the chart, and more specifically Pisces energy or a lot of Neptune energy, where we're really called to experience the transcendent, more subtle aspects of the universe, the best way for us to channel that energy is to find an outlet for it, something that rejuvenates us. Because ultimately, that fast track is not rejuvenating. It might you know, give us some temporary relief, but it's not a long-term fix for the very sensitive, you know, nature of Pisces and of Neptune. So meditation or listening to music, things that, you know, a creative pursuit, things that allow us to channel that sensitivity into some other manifestation. Even, you know, being a compassionate person is a wonderful way to channel the Neptunian and Pisces energy. But again, we have to learn how to take care of ourselves if we want to be able to continue going out into the world and being that compassionate, sensitive person that we are. All right, so looking at Bourdain's transits, he did have some interesting transits going on, and that perhaps, you know, were causing some of this unrest. He was going through transiting Uranus, moving through Taurus, which started in May of this year, squaring his natal Uranus. And when we're this is a transit that only happens 2 times in our life, and it really is suggestive of a lot of change and needing to go in new directions, basically. And I wanted to read something from Robert Hand, the Planets in Transit book, and he says, this transit occurs twice in your life, once when you're in your early 20s and again when you are in your early 60s. Each time it signifies major changes in your life that require significant reorientation. And he talks about the second time that it happens, it's when people are approaching retirement and often they don't know what to do with their coming leisure time. All they know is their work, and when that ends, their life effectively ends. This is the crisis presented by this transit. You must realize that the richness of your life does not come only from your achievements in the outer world of business and society, but also from what you know and understand about your life. So, you know, he didn't have the typical life where you would retire at 65 necessarily. I mean, he had one of those lifestyles where he could have gone on, but maybe, you know, he was feeling like he needed a change, and it was, you know, bubbling up, and it was creating some sort of stress in his life. And another woman, Virginia, Rosenberg.com, writes about how to, well, she writes about some of the energies that you might feel, and she says anxiety, nervousness, high levels of tension, restlessness, resistance to change and letting go, dissatisfaction, feeling ungrounded, high-speed living, which of course, going back to what I said in the beginning, it sounds like, you know, he was feeling somewhat exhausted because of the pace of the work that he was doing. And then she suggests that some of the benefits that can be gained are, you know, rapid shift, gaining personal independence, freedom from restrictive ties. You know, you can, these freedom, these liberating energies. The other thing that was happening for him is that transiting Saturn had been opposing his Sun at the same time. Now, this started in January of 2018, but it was going to it was going to station retrograde within 1 degree of his Sun in early September of 2018 as well, because his Sun's at 3 degrees of Cancer, and Saturn would be stationing at 2 degrees of Capricorn in September. So, and then it would have gone retrograde more, and then it would have gone direct, and then come back in opposition to his Sun one more time in October of this year. And again, you know, Sun transiting Saturn opposite Sun, the oppositions always bring in our relationships with other people. It works itself out in our relationship dynamics. So he kind of could have just been feeling a lot of pressure to keep going, but at the same time he was sort of wanting change with that Uranus squaring his Uranus. And I wanted to read about what transiting Saturn opposite the Sun is indicative of, and the futureminders.com write that you're at an important turning point in your life direction when you have the chance to reevaluate your course and make any changes that are necessary. Even if your work has been satisfying up until this point, it will seem that delays and obstacles appear out of nowhere to challenge your commitment, and you may question whether or not you're on the right track. This questioning process may be difficult and disconcerting, but it's a necessary step into finding what you really want from your career and what you've outgrown. Because Saturn is about our work, and the sun is our vitality and our, life force. So it's bringing up this dynamic of, does our work blend or, with who we want to be and how we want to shine out into the world? So that was going on in his chart as well. And the last transit I want to mention is that transiting Mars in Aquarius had been opposing his natal Uranus at the same time that transiting Uranus was squaring his natal Uranus. And this started in May of this year. It was going to come back and retrograde his Mars in June. And then it was going to continue to oppose it as it moved direct and would have completed in September of 2018. And, Mars opposite Uranus, that is really unexpected behavior, because Mars is our drive. Mars is our, our desire to assert ourselves. And then Uranus is like, the unexpected, the shocking, something that creates change, This is really kind of an impulsive energy. And, if there were any, and we don't know this, but if there were any kind of substance issues that he was going through, like if he had been drinking a lot at this particular time, it's possible that Mars opposite Uranus energy just kind of caused something unexpected for him to do. Instead of like the Mars opposite Uranus energy causing us to kind of like, get frustrated and act in really irrational, impulsive ways, it can be used to really liberate us from circumstances that we feel are, holding us back, or that are, not really in alignment with the direction that we ultimately want to go in our lives. So these are the major transits that I saw when looking at his chart. It's obviously just extremely sad that both of these people in the public eye have, succumbed to this, this kind of situation. And I know it affects so many other people. Anthony Bourdain himself, I believe, has an 11-year-old or had an 11-year-old daughter who has to, deal with this in her life now. But at the same time, if you're in such a mental state where you can't, make any other decision, that speaks to the mental health crisis that's going on in our society right now. And from what I understand, suicide rates have increased. I believe it was 30% in the last 20 years. So it's definitely, an issue that's coming up and needs to be brought out into the public more, and it needs to be, the stigma around it, around mental health challenges, needs to be eliminated so that we can really truly address our issues and get the help that we might, that might save our lives. So I do want to end this video by saying, please, if you are struggling, there's a number here that's attached to this video that you can call to seek help, to talk to somebody, because we all face challenges in life, and it's hard to see that in people, especially celebrities, because celebrity is ruled by Neptune, and Neptune is about glamour and illusion and making things look perfect, and the way that, and then we're all left to feel like, oh, we need to be that, we need to attain that, it's like it becomes this image that we're all going for, and it doesn't allow for a realistic look at the realities of all of our lives. We all struggle, we all have challenges, and it's important, if we are feeling like we can't handle those struggles and challenges on our own, that we reach out to people, you know, our friends, our family. A hotline like this, you know, it's not, we don't need to be ashamed. We can really connect with things and invite transformation into our lives. We really can. It's actually very empowering when we can get to that place in our lives. And so I just want to leave you all with you know, that message, and thank you so much for watching my channel. If you like it, please subscribe. I have a website, highaltitudeastrology.com. You can sign up to receive a daily blog from me that I write about my interpretation of the planetary energies. Thanks so much. Take care of yourselves. Adios.